But I would still say that there is definitely a scope and there is definitely a need and there's definitely a space for an independent voice device manufactured by an Indian company, by an Indian startup, or by anyone, right? Which is going to compete head on head with Amazon, Google, and Bixby, and also win the race. So StoryCube is the Netflix for voice devices. Kids would love being Iron Man, right? Or being, there are so much VC money that has been burned in Silicon Valley on VR, on mixed reality, and on AR, right? And you see Disney putting in money in creating such stories. You see Audible recently reaching 200 million in revenue.
Welcome to another episode of Startup Sunday. Today we will be discussing the future of voice technology in India. For this we have Mr. Vishnu Saran. He is the CEO of VoiceCube. This company focuses on delivering voice tech services to the businesses globally. So sir, what drove you to start a business in voice tech space?
So hi Nihal, thanks for having me on this show. So yeah, back in 2018, we observed what kind of technologies are picking up in the market, and we saw that voice has tremendous potential because voice is naturally intuitive for so many individuals across the globe, right? Because almost every human being communicates with his voice and speaks natural language. So I think it's when I started VoiceCube, we thought the opportunity is really good, especially with Amazon, Google, Samsung pouring in so much money in voice technology, NLP, and their own home assistants. So it's very natural that all businesses would want to be on such prominent devices so that they can communicate with their consumers better. So according to what we saw voice as a gateway for the entire domain of human-computer interaction space as such, which would eventually have other technologies like augmented reality, mixed reality, and etc. So voice is the gateway. Voice is natural and voice is very convenient for everyone to speak and communicate with their computer devices. It's very intuitive. So based on this premise, we wanted to do something in voice. And why we started VoiceCube is that as a services company, it gives us a lot of freedom. It gives us a lot of insights into what kind of domains and what kind of use cases a lot of these industries are getting into when they're trying to use something like conversation design, NLP, and voice. So we always wanted to be a product company, but in order to identify which product to build, in order to zero in on what idea to pursue, we had to know, how the landscape is looking like, right? So that's the reason why we started VoiceCube as a services company.
I am a big fan of Gary Vee, and I know you are too. So here's a video from him.
The reason I'm obsessed with brand is when in 15 years at scale, we're buying things through voice-activated AI devices. If I say, Alexa, send me cereal, Amazon's about to make a lot of money. If I say, Alexa, send me Kellogg's cornflakes, cornflakes wins. If you are not in a place where you're top of mind through the mouth, the toll booths that are coming that will make Google and Facebook look like child's play are going to dominate and destroy many brands, especially when they start building private labels that are far more powerful than what Tesco and Walmart are doing. Wait till they start buying brands. Wait till we wake up and Amazon buys LVMH. And now when you say send me a purse, it's people are being very naive of what the next chess moves look like. And so brand is the only thing left. Brand is the only thing left.
In this video, he is emphasizing how branding is important before the voice tech takes over the retail market. So what's your take on this?
So yeah, Gary Vee, he gets a lot of things right, and I would say that this is something that he is very, very close in predicting what the future will look like. I think the essence of the video is this, right? I mean, in let's say 5 years down the line, some 6-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid or probably 10-year-old kid, right? He's interacting with an Alexa device. He wants to buy his favorite choco chips or something like that, right? So he would say, hey, Alexa, order one box of chocolates or one box of choco chips, right? Now it depends on whether he's going to mention the brand or not. So let's say he doesn't mention the brand, right? If he doesn't mention the brand, the gatekeeper, as he calls it, which is the Alexa device, which is the personal assistant of this 10-year-old, has the ability to pick and choose what brand to sell to this particular individual. And that's tremendous power, because at the end of the day, if he's not mentioning a brand, it means that the brand is not that important. What is important is he getting his chocolates or he getting his chocolate chips. So Amazon can sell their own brands, and that's going to disrupt the retail sector as we know it. Whereas the other use cases where he specifically mentions that, okay, hey Alexa, order me a box of Ferrero Rocher chocolates. Now he's mentioning a brand over here. So any gatekeeper would be definitely obliged to order only that specific box of chocolates. So that's where the power of brand comes in, and that's why brands have to be more careful about conversation design. They have to give more importance to their voice assistant strategy, right? And they have to give tremendous importance to how they reach out to consumers on a more personal level, because it's going to become a habit. Like, I mean, I would definitely be very particular about the brand of mobile phone that I use, but maybe I'm not that particular about the brand of this earphones or probably my t-shirt, right? So if let's say somebody wants to sell me only their brand of t-shirts, right? So they would have to personally um, appeal to me, saying that, you know, these are the advantages that you get, and this is how easy it is for you to order your favorite t-shirts or customize your favorite t-shirt, and we have all your data with us, like what's my t-shirt size and stuff. Because honestly, you know, I agree with Gary Vee that people don't care about their privacy when it comes to you know, convenience trumps everything else. Nobody cares about privacy if they are able to get their things done smoother and in a more seamless fashion.
From where this whole tech space is moving, I can clearly assume that in future, every brand will have its own personality. So, can you please give some examples on how a brand will have its own personality?
Brands have been having the personality for a long time right now. The best example being Amul. The Amul's girl character, right, with her witty statements, with her short sentences and brilliant copywriting. It captures the imagination of every consumer, and it becomes a talking point with your friends. They talk about current affairs, right? Amul gives a comment about what's happening globally right now in the world in a very good cartoon.
Yeah.
So I think personality for a brand has been there for a long time, and the importance gets much better right now, right? It's more important than ever. Brands have to be very careful about how their communication is, because now they are having a conversation directly with the consumers on a one-to-one basis, and consumers don't want to be waiting for their concerns to be heard, right? So let's say I have an internet subscription and that gets expired, or it has some problems. I don't want them to wait for, let's say, tomorrow or a couple of days to reply back to me. I want them to have a conversation with me right now and give me the assurance that, hey, you know what, we are available for any kind of conversation at all times, and we are working on your issue, and this is the approximate time it will take in order to solve that issue. Because this sort of communication is not there right now, a lot of consumers are resorting to Twitter comments, nasty comments, nasty Facebook comments, and then you have a team of people who are replying to them, who are trying to, you know, request them to have patience and stuff like that. So I think brands having personality is definitely going to be essential going forward, and conversation technology is going to increase the demand for more personal communication between the brands and consumers. And it's irrespective whether it's India, Sri Lanka, or Australia or USA, right? It's universal.
As you have provided voice tech support to many businesses, at what stage do you think this industry is? And what is the demographic of the user base?
So I would say that voice technology industry is pretty nascent. I think I can go ahead and say that people don't have any clue whatsoever, right from big banks to financial institutions, to government organizations, to hoteliers, restaurants, and you name it, right? People don't have a clue of what to do with this technology. They clearly don't. They have certain pilot use cases. They have such certain fancy applications that they want to build, which they are using our help to build, right? And we had this conversation with several of our clients. They try to do something very pointless because there's a fundamental difference between how you design a voice conversation and how you design a graphical user interface, which is a mobile app. So if you see a lot of these people mistake a voice application or a voice conversation on an Alexa device to that of an IVR system on your phone. You don't go and give a menu to someone who's using an Alexa device. It has to be designed in such a way that it can take in any request, understand that request, understand the user intent, and give back the response appropriately. So nobody has a clue right now what to do. Some of the trending use cases though are in the consumption space, like voice games, stories which are completely audio based, or some kind of interactive stories. So these are on a rise, and you see Disney putting in money in creating such stories. You see Audible recently reaching
Spotify, yeah.
200 million in revenue, right? And Storytel, right? Storytel reached 1 million subscribers recently. So these kind of audio content is definitely on the rise, and I think that's been the case with every new technology that has come uh, and introduced itself to mankind, right? Right from PCs to mobile phones to the iPod, iPad, and now the voice devices. The first thing that people do is use it for consumption, use it for entertainment, use it for uh, primarily consuming content
Yeah.
purpose. Performing tasks and all are, again, voice doesn't become some essential service there, but I would definitely try to point out that the lower age groups, right, like the kids and the senior age groups, they tend to be more active on these voice devices because their natural form of communication, their intuitive form of communication is through language and through voice. So it's very easy for them to use these devices. Whereas people in our age group and uh, between 18 to
18 to
35
35.
or 45,
Yeah.
we are so accustomed to our mobile phones, we are so accustomed to the laptop screens, we are so accustomed to the graphical user interface that there's a huge inertia for us to move to something
What?
like voice.
Yeah. I saw one of your videos at World Economic Forum. There you discussed about more prominent use cases like health and education. For example, you discussed about how this technology can be used for by teachers and parents for students to learn. So, can you please tell what are the current projects you are working on?
So currently, one interesting project that we are doing is called StoryCube. So StoryCube is the Netflix for voice devices. Right now, let's say you have an Alexa device, you don't know what to do with it, and you have to go through 100,000 skills in order to understand which skill is doing good, which skill is appropriate for me. And discovery is a very big problem, both for the consumer and for someone who's creating the content. So we want to be the curated platform. We want to be the Netflix for voice devices, right? So you go on this app and you see all these interactive experiences. So primarily we are focusing on kids. So these are stories where the kid has to save the planet from an alien attack, and in the process he learns how to code. Or the kid is going on an adventure in New York City, and throughout the entire story he learns about different cultures which are present in New York, right? So we are trying to become a entertainment platform primarily, but also have subconscious learning in the background. And this platform is open for third party publishers. So let's say tomorrow Disney wants to host some of their stories, they are open to do so. BBC is investing a lot of money, they can put their content here. And you see so many individual contributors across the globe in multiple languages, right? So this platform will be like a solution for them because it will take them directly to the consumers, and it will solve a big problem, which is discovery. So for very good content publishers, StoryCube is going to solve the discovery problem so that people actually know what to do with their interactive devices. Like how they can have fun with it, right? Kids would love being Iron Man, right? Or being their favorite cartoon character or favorite comic character. So imagine they having a book in their hands, and all the rest, they pick a character, right? Okay, I want to be Captain America. So all the other characters dialogues are being told by Amazon, and whenever it's Captain America's dialogue, I have to say it out loud. So I am essentially Captain America, and that kind of feeling is going to be very appealing for kids, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also, choose your adventure kind of stories where, depending on the choices you make, the adventure changes into different directions. So we want to build a legacy of content that is primarily designed for this genre of interactive storytelling. So that's what we are working on right now, and I think it's going to play a lot of it's going to bring a lot of value to especially underprivileged kids, right? Kids with, let's say, visual impairness, or visually challenged kids. So nobody creates content keeping them in mind, or nobody creates content that is going to be very amusing for them, where they can also have a good time. So I think voice devices is going to bridge that gap, and I think that's going to be one of the topmost use cases for these Alexa devices.
India is a land of diversity, and when it comes to languages, we are even more diverse. For example, we speak 100 plus languages, and each language has different accents in different regions. For a technology like this, which is very nascent, this is a major challenge. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge, but wherever there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. And we already saw startups capitalizing on this opportunity. Startups like Live.ai, right? It got acquired by Flipkart for 240 odd crores. So they did a complete NLP engine for, Indian languages. And they're doing pretty good right now. They are building something internal for Flipkart. So I think more companies would get into that. More companies would try to collect data from the local dialects and create specific speech to text engines, specific NLP engines, so that applications can be built around these languages, so that all of these users can come on board very quickly and get connected with voice. Amazon has already launched Alexa in Hindi, but then yeah, Amazon has I wouldn't vouch for Amazon's design principles as such, because imagining a consumer saying Alexa Colo voice cube, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense. Who uses the word Colo? It's very unappealing. And they got it wrong. So I think we can see a lot of innovations in this space, and a lot of really good companies coming forward in the next 2 to 3 years. And there's definitely going to be a connection between this voice space and the entire VR and XR spectrum, right?
Yeah,
Because human computer interaction is going to be like a very good field of research and innovation in the next 10 years.
yeah. I have seen many interviews of Mark Cuban where he advocates the use of voice technology for home automation. And I see this as a next big thing in the real estate industry. What do you think about it? And also, I think there will be an amalgamation of AR, VR, and voice tech in future. And how do you see this connection point?
Yeah, so I think there are two questions here, right? So the first question regarding home automation, I think voice has made home automation complete.
Yeah,
So before voice, you had to open your mobile phone, you had to open the app of home automation, and then you had to search for the specific button for your tube light, and then click on it in order to change it. That It's easier to just go and switch off the light, right? So it's always convenience first. Just because you can do it from your app, yeah, it has its use cases that you can check your, let us say, whether your geyser is left on when you go off to your office, or let's say the fan is switched off in your first floor bedroom, right? So those kind of minor use cases, yeah, it made sense to have an app and also to track energy consumption. But when voice came into picture, it became more natural. It became the Iron Man moment, right? You have that power of Friday switch off the lights,
yeah,
or something like that, right? So you just say Alexa switch off all the lights, and it switches off all the lights. Alexa, set temperature to 24 in my AC. So that makes sense. So voice has actually completed the home automation use case, and every home automation company across the world definitely needs to have voice integration. And in this space, there's not much scope for innovation for, let's say, an agency, or let's say a third party company who's trying to do integration, because Amazon has made it very seamless, Google has made it very seamless for home automation companies to directly hook on their APIs and get the job done. So I think I agree with Mark Cuban that every just like how every home in the US has certain basic amenities preset, they will also have all their lights, uh, the air conditioning and all the appliances also automated, and everything governed using your own voice assistant, right? So and we see a lot of Indian companies doing that as well, and it has a lot of potential. But of course, it's still a fancy use case. It's still in some very niche markets. It still has to become mainstream because it's not like a really essential need. uh, People are still okay operating the switches. So yeah, it's an okay use case. And
It's
your
for
second question is
someone.
how would,
It's for someone who wants to be Tony Stark in his own dreams, and they can apply it today and just for show off and
yeah,
luxury.
and maybe it's also for senior people,
Yeah,
right? So senior human beings who want to go to the washroom in the middle of the night. So they can't search for the switch, and it's pretty dangerous, right? So you can just say Alexa, switch on the washroom light, and then it goes on. So there are definitely use cases, but it's a very niche market. Now, your second question is more interesting to me because there's a company called Tesseract which was acquired by Geo. Tesseract is a very good startup which completely deals in mixed reality headsets, and they released their SDK recently for third-party innovators, for publishers and developers to create content on their headset. So now these headsets are in their own war altogether. There are so much VC money that has been burned in Silicon Valley on VR, on mixed reality, and on AR, right? So there is no specific use case as such for AR plus voice right now. But if you just let your imagination go wide, you have educational use cases, you have entertainment use cases, you have physical exercise and activities use cases where both augmented reality and voice make sense, right? So let's say you are in a game and then you're looking at augmented objects, and these are puzzles that are coming at you, and you have to solve the puzzles before they hit you, right? That increases your speed. So that's an educational use case with some gamification. So, and then let's say you're trying to learn how to dissect a human body, right, from a medical standpoint, and then you have a doubt, hey, where does that go, or where does this go, how to do this particular incision properly. So, and then you get an immediate response, and you see augmented objects coming in front of you and explaining you the concept. So those kind of use cases are very fancy and very relevant as well. So we will see a lot of it probably a couple of years down the line.
both tech giants Amazon and Google are investing heavily in voice and are competing neck to neck. For example, Amazon with its Alexa and Google with its Google Home. Who do who do you think is better and why?
So I would say that Google's design principles are pretty good because let's imagine Mark Cuban having a podcast, or Gary Vee having a podcast, or some skill, right? Or let's say NDTV, right? NDTV has its own Google Action and an Alexa skill. Now, saying something like Alexa open NDTV news, that's okay. But Google is like, and then before you do that opening, you have to enable the skill, you have to do the account linking, and there are ton of other stuff. And even finding that NDTV skill primarily will be a big challenge because you have to go into the Alexa app, which is very slow. You have to click on skills and games, which is again very slow. Then you need to search, again slow. So it's full of friction. But whereas with Google, you just say, hey Google, talk to NDTV. You're right there. So again, from a design perspective, that's more appealing. But Google's developer community and Google's action community, right? That's very nascent, and they don't have enough actions. They don't have enough developers. They don't have enough innovations on their platform yet. Whereas Amazon has so many APIs, so much, so they've gone ahead like light years ahead, right? So, and Google to catch up with Amazon, it's going to take a lot of time, especially in the developer community. So I think Amazon is very good in very well placed in that aspect, because it's again like AWS and Google Cloud. You have a lot of AWS developers, which will make sure that people would prefer using AWS as primary DevOps. So Amazon has always been good at that, and it nailed that very well. Google has already always been good at design, and it nailed that well. So I think both of very well poised, and they have their own advantages and disadvantages. But I would still say that there is definitely a scope, and there is definitely a need, and there's definitely a space for an independent voice device manufactured by an Indian company, by an Indian startup, or by anyone, right? Which is going to compete head on head with Amazon, Google, and Bixby, and also win the race, because it's again the David versus Goliath equation. And when you have such a huge baggage that you're coming with, huge enterprises and huge policies and huge designs, that decisions that have already been made, you can't unlearn and you can't re-innovate. But whereas for a new startup and a new device company, that is definitely possible. So I am looking forward to that.
Yeah. So that was about Amazon and Google. What's your vision with VoiceCube and how are you working on it?
So the product that we are trying to build, the Netflix for voice devices, right? That product is called StoryCube, and our vision for the next few years is completely fixed to that. We want to make education fun, and we want to use these devices as primary interfaces with kids, so that they can have entertaining and engaging stories which they can remember a lifetime, right? Because I remember all the books I read as a child. I remember all the cartoons that I've seen as a child. And I think having one more storytelling platform like an Alexa device, where it's interactive, where it is having multiple storylines, and it's engaging, and it is actually making me feel as if I live in that universe with all the audio effects. I think that's going to be phenomenal. And for the next 4 years or next how many ever years, we want to build like a large content base around that. So that's going to be our primary focus.
Companies like Amazon and Google are running different programs to educate students about these technologies, like Alexa Student Influencer by Amazon and many such programs by Google. What's your advice for students and budding entrepreneurs regarding the voice tech space?
Yeah, I think Alexa student influencers and all these things, right? They are very fancy, and as a student, you might get attracted to it, but they're absolutely of no use. I can tell you that. If you want to build a company, you learn the trade, you learn how to build an Alexa skill, you find a use case and go right into it. You just build it. You just build it and ping people on LinkedIn, like how you reached out to me, right? It's so easy. You just reach out to people and you say, hey, you know what? I built this. Do you want to use it? Do you want to check it out? And that's how you build a company. You get your first customer, you know how to build it, you learn, you fail, you learn, you fail, you learn. So, and you go forward. So jump right into it. It's a very good roller coaster ride, because you have to pick your own brand, you have to make yourself the CEO, and all those kind of attractive stuff is going to be there on the entrepreneur side as well. But it's going to be very lonely. So if you're going to do entrepreneurship, it's very much recommended that you have other founder friends, right? So that you can bounce ideas with each other, you can share stuff with each other, and you can share journeys. Otherwise it feels as if, okay, all your friends are going in one direction and they're being pretty successful and they're leading really good lives, and whereas you are trying to pursue something which seems foolish to everyone, right? So that would be my first advice, that stop getting attracted to Kool-Aid and Fugazi. Stop getting attracted to all the fancy stuff. Think about bottom line. How can you build stuff? How can you earn money? How can you build a company? Be very objective and try to learn more about yourself. Like, let's say one good question that you can ask yourself is, let's say tomorrow you are on Forbes 30 under 30, right? Now, you definitely don't want to be on Forbes 30 under 30 because you're an Alexa student influencer. Do you? You want to be in that magazine because you created something very good which so many people are using, or you created so much wealth that you're proud of, right? So think in that direction. What do you want to do? What you're passionate about to do, and what do you want to be known for? What is going to be your legacy? And make steps in that direction.
That was really a good advice. So, on that note, we are ending today's episode. Please, if you watched till now, do hit that like button and subscribe for more such interviews. And also hit a comment about things you are curious about. Thank you.